of 9 billion by mid-century. As its title denotes, the World Agricultural Forum conferences take a worldview on issues, and over the next 3 days you will hear from experts from many countries and many disciplines. As a former Prime Minister, I know a little about politics, but the WAF doesn't play politics, and we have had politicians of all persuasions address our conferences. Likewise, we have had speakers from large corporations to representatives from landless peasant organisations and all others. Our interest is simple: to share information and knowledge in the hope that we, the world community, will be more successful in feeding the world in the future than it has been in the past. To that point, 8 days ago, before I left New Zealand for India, I watched on BBC World News an item about rising food prices in India. They interviewed a farmer who noted his costs had gone up, so he had to charge more. They talked to the transport operator, and he said also that his costs had gone up, so he had to charge more. And the wholesaler had a similar story. So food and the price of food is a very topical issue here in India and in many, many other countries. It is the right time, therefore, to hold a WAF conference here in South Asia on sustainable food production with, as I said, a special focus on the role played by small farmers and, importantly, the role of women in agriculture. The World Food Programme notes that if women farmers had the same access to resources as men, the number of hungry in the world could be reduced by up to 150 million. Think about that, because policymakers must factor that into policy formation. The simple question is, why doesn't it happen? But the real question is what might help change cultural norms which see women as inferior. That won't be easy, but 150 million hungry people say it must happen. In today's world, countries are more interconnected than in all history, but that doesn't mean all countries subscribe to the same value system, and that adds another complexity to reaching the goal of enough food for all. Again, the World Food Programme data gives us a measure of the task in front of the world, but also gives us evidence of progress and hope. According to the WFP figures, 1 in 8 people suffer from chronic hunger. A figure of 842 million do not get enough to eat to be healthy. A huge figure. But the good news is that the number has fallen by 156 million since 1990. Good news. Progress has been made. But at this gathering, I want you to focus your attention and energy on how national and world policy can be changed to achieve significant further reductions in world hunger. This requires the wise use of land, water, and knowledge. Knowledge, whether transmitted down through the ages, or the most recent findings from research institutes and universities, is an essential tool, not an optional tool, an essential tool if we are to feed the world. Here again, we run into some very entrenched attitudes regarding one aspect of science, GM, or genetically modified crops. To me, it is disappointing that many of the same groups that insist that the world must accept the scientific consensus on climate change will argue with equal passion against the scientific consensus that GM food is safe. To be blunt, some groups need to rethink their positions. They can't have it both ways. They either accept sound science or they don't. Achieving a political consensus on the role of GM crops in meeting the world's food needs would go some way to assisting the production of the food the world requires to meet the needs of 9 billion people by 2050. Likewise, political and scientific consensus on the implications of climate change, with special focus on food production, is needed to develop policies to help mitigate the impact of climate change on food production. Science, dare I say, is putting some tough decisions in front of policymakers, and here I invite the large corporations to step up and provide leadership. Yes, it requires courage, given the skeptics, the high levels of politics around the world in many countries, but we must begin planning now, as to delay a response to climate change is to invite disaster, as a new report referred to in yesterday's Times of India makes very, very clear. This conference was brought together in a way to enable speakers to take a strategic look at all the issues across the food chain to meet growing food requirements. I'm certain it is going to be a great conference where important ideas, possibilities and options will be raised, discussed and reflected on. I start from the premise that the world has changed and is changing so much that we all collectively have to look at issues differently. No one would suggest that we look at technology in the same way today as we did 25 years back, and most certainly we mustn't look at the food chain through the prism of yesterday. From my perspective, this is not a conference about avoiding change and promoting the status quo. This is a conference where many outstanding leaders in their own fields will put new ideas in front of you, and the format is designed to enable you to discuss and debate issues. We want you, the attendees, involved, especially in discussing issues among yourselves. Having said all of that, I know there will be some that are more fearful of change, and thus it has always been. Let me reflect on that for a moment. Modern India began in 1947 when India gained its independence from the then British Empire. Now that began a new phase in India's transition into the society it is today. This is not the platform to debate the many elements of that transition, but to acknowledge that today's India is a result of the work of many, many courageous leaders. My first visit to your great country was back in 1974, when a small group of New Zealand members of Parliament were visiting a small number of Asian countries to gain a greater understanding of New Zealand's neighbours to our north. In today's term, I suppose it was a pivot to Asia, but note, it took place 39 years back. The visit was also only 3 years after the British House of Commons had voted for the UK to join the then European Economic Community, now the EU, the European Union. And New Zealand, like India back in 1947, was facing a different world. On that visit, I was privileged to have a meeting and discussion with then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, and later to visit the Gandhi Memorial and be presented with a small book, which I still have, titled All Men Are Brothers, the life and thoughts of Mahatma Gandhi. The concept that all men are created equal has powerful appeal, and for example is contained in the second paragraph of the American Declaration of Independence. But the gap between the ambition and the reality is still a work in progress. Not only has the world community failed to deliver on the concept of equality, but it has failed to deliver the basic necessity of life for hundreds of millions around the world. There can be no greater failure. We at the WAF do not conceive our mission to provide all the answers. Rather, we want to encourage you, who know such more about your own countries, to reject the pathways that have failed and instead build a new pathway that puts some flesh on the bones of the ideal that all men, and let me add, all women, are created equal. If we can at this conference take the first steps to map out this new road, then you, the attendees, will always be able to look back and say, I was at that conference. I was part of those discussions. Many speakers you will hear over the next 3 days will, I'm sure, identify the options for going forward. Note I said options. There are always different possibilities, but from my experience, the only option that doesn't work is to stay with policies that have failed to deliver to your goals. If the price of food is too high relative to incomes, if farmers lack options, if women lack opportunities, if land and water are not being used wisely, and whether you are in Europe, the United States, or in Asia, we must bring about change. That's the only realistic basis for looking at the future. This is not a cause for pessimism, for great progress has been made in many countries, but we need to do more. When I first visited India back in 1974, the population was a hugely impressive 588 million people. In the 39 years since then, India has added a further 682 million to its population. And the farmers of India have stepped up and produced most of the food to feed this huge population. A remarkable effort by any measurement. That population growth, and there are similar figures elsewhere, puts into some context the task ahead of all involved at every step of the way in the food chain. I conclude by observing that the key to success is not mindlessly repeating textbook dogma or ideology, but to develop a response that reflects the social and economic reality of individual countries. Reform, however, will take much more than good intentions. It is never for the faint-hearted, but to feed tomorrow's world will require leaders in both the public and private sector to step up and lead. I've concentrated my remarks on the size of the challenge, the progress thus far, and some of the issues that must be addressed. My optimism is that we can make all of it happen. Thank you for your attention and have a great conference.
Thank you, sir, for the WAF welcome address. I now request Sri Kanna Lakshmi Narayana, Honorable Minister for Agriculture and ATN, Government of Andhra Pradesh, to deliver the welcome address.
Honorable Chief Minister Sri N. Kiran Kumar Reddy Garu, Honorable Union State for Agriculture, Union Minister State for Agriculture Sri Tariq Anwar ji, my colleague Minister Sri Ram Reddy Venkat Reddy Garu, Sri Kashi Krishna Reddy Garu, Pitan Satyanarayana Garu, T.J. Venkatesh Garu, and Mr. Honorable James Bolger, Chairman Advisory Board, World Agriculture Forum, Dr. Kenneth M. Baker, Chairman World Agriculture Forum, Mr. P.K. Mohanty, Chief Secretary, distinguished dignitaries on the dais, members of the World Agriculture Forum, invited speakers, delegates, invitees, members of the print and electronic media, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, on behalf of Government of Andhra Pradesh, I extend a warm welcome to all of you to the historic city of Hyderabad and to this prestigious Congress 2013 and Agri-Tech Trade Fair. As an agriculture minister of a farmers-friendly state, Government of Andhra Pradesh, it is a matter of pride for me to host the World Agriculture Forum Congress 2013 in our pursuit of excellence in making agriculture sustainable and profitable in general and for small and marginal farm holders in particular. Indian agriculture has a long history and a sound traditional base. It remains the major source of employment to its millions and a source of raw materials for several major industries industries. The necessity, will and determination of the farmers, dedicated efforts of the agriculture scientists, and wholehearted support of the policymakers together, the country could achieve the green revolution. The success story of Free India was followed by White Revolution, Yellow Revolution, and then the Blue Revolution. The country is now moving towards reaching information, communication, and gene revolutions. Since 2004, our government under dynamic leadership of Sri Y.S. Rajshekar Reddy Garu too, now present Chief Minister, Mr. Kiran Kumar Reddy, Honorable Chief Minister, through several farmer-friendly interventions has been supporting the farm sector. Free power, farm mechanization, interest-free loans, and Pavla Vaddi, Polammadi, RKVY, integrated nutrient management, crop insurance are some among the several schemes implemented by the state government to support agriculture and the farmers. Further, we have invited the process to bring the convergence among all the agri and allied sectors for sustainable agriculture and rural development. The state accounts for 20% of exports. As a result of sustained efforts, the state has made rapid strides in food security. With near self-sufficiency, our state has achieved food grain production of 20 million tons with sizable contribution to the national buffer stocks. The future of state economic and social development is largely dependent upon technical innovations in agriculture and its allied fields. It is pertinent to mention that about 80% of 132 million farmers in the country and that of 13 millions of Andhra Pradesh are small and marginal farmers. Thus, the government is committed to take all those steps that protect the interests of small and marginal farmers and providing support to all those concerned who join this noble endeavor. Seed is one of the critical elements of agricultural production. I would like to reiterate our commitment to regulate the seed sector in terms of quality, prices and delivery. I appeal to the private industry involved in plant production and production aspects to cooperate and join the government in protecting the interests of small and marginal farmers. We are ready to bring out a legislation which protects small and marginal farmers from exploitation and also enables a fair, equitable and transparent process of contribution by private sector. Post-Green Revolution, three prominent consequences of the new technology have become evident. On the positive side, farmers have accepted and adapted some of the advanced technologies, thereby helped the nation overcome the food problem. On the negative side, the excessive utilization of agrochemicals affected natural resources, causing ecological imbalances. Further, some of the sound traditional management practices of natural farm resources were neglected in the process. Certain complex problems that need to be addressed in the changing scenario are stagnation and decline of yield levels of major crops, shrinking farm holdings, impacting the modernization process, narrowing land-man ratio, extensive destruction of vegetation adversely affecting the farm environment, climate change, increasing disparity in economic growth and per capita income and living standards between urban and rural. Rural unemployment and underemployment, creating social, economic and political consequences. Inadequate development of backward and forward linkages to farm sector, slowing down the progression in the rural economy. Absence of necessary farmers, organizations to facilitate plant production of farm commodities and promotion of farmers. Farm prices have become a perpetual source of concern and frustration to farmers. Inadequate infrastructure and market services, to me, reshaping or redefining agriculture would mean bringing back the glory of farmers and farming, which brings them income, respect and dignity in the larger society. The challenge is how we can continue to work with current employment in agriculture. Losing them would be a great national loss, and bringing such volumes of human resources again would require closer investments. Small and marginal farmers cannot be seen merely as numbers. They are like disciplined soldiers in braving a war of ensuring food security to the nation. And I would be in the front to ensure that they continue to serve the nation. At the end, let me mention that it has indeed been a great privilege to share some of my thoughts with you on a subject that has rightly been chosen as the theme of this Congress. I am sure that deliberations in this Congress would enable us to evolve a long-term sustainable future for small farm holders to take Indian agriculture to newer heights. I thank the World Agriculture Forum for providing the opportunity to the government of Andhra Pradesh to host Agriculture Forum Congress 2013 and the Agri-Tech Trade Fair under our dynamic leadership of our Chief Minister N. Kiran Kumar Reddy garu. I strongly hope that the scientists, academicians, policymakers, farmers and their organizations, government departments, private sector organizers will work together for the cause of the Indian farmers. With these few words, once again I welcome all of you and I wish your stay in Hyderabad will be a fruitful and pleasantly memorable one. I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to share some of my thoughts with you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your welcome address. I now invite Shri Ramareddy Venkat Reddy Garu, Honorable Minister for Horticulture, Sericulture, RSAD, Government of Andhra Pradesh, to address the gathering.
Our dynamic CM, N. Kiran Kumar Reddy garu, Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, Sri Tariq Anwar garu, Honorable Minister of State Agriculture and Government of India, Honorable James Bolgar garu, Chairman, World Agriculture Forum, Advisory Board of Farmers, Prime Minister of New Zealand, Dr. Kenneth M. Baker garu, Chairman, World Agriculture Forum, and our colleagues, Honorable Minister Pitan Satyanarayana garu, Honorable Minister Krishna Reddy garu, Honorable Minister Venkatesh garu, and our colleague and Agriculture Minister Sri Kanna Lakshmanarayana garu, our Chief Secretary Dr. P.K. Mahanti garu, distinguished guests and as invitees, delegates, and farmers and press and media. It is a great privilege to be with you all the opening ceremony of World Agriculture Forum 2013 conference at Hyderabad city. I extend warm welcome to one and all for their comfortable deliberation during the conference. Horticulture is an important segment of agriculture sector, contributes approximately 5.16% of the state GSDP. The GSDP was 4.98% in 2004-2005 and increased to 5.16% by 2012 to 2013. Due to high returns in the exports in the horticulture sector, Government of Andhra Pradesh has given importance to the horticulture sector during 12th Five-Year Plan, and various programs are being taken up to increase the GSDP up to 8%. The area under horticulture crops was 3.70 lakh hectares in 1982, but which was increased to 27 lakh hectares in 2012 to 2013. And AP ranked first in production of citrus, spices, oil palm, tomato and chilies and turmeric. Second in production of mango and cashew. Third in production of flowers and fourth in production of banana. I would like to mention some of the major milestones in horticulture sector pertaining to our state. Our AP micro-irrigation project, APMIP, an area of 9.75 lakhs hectares have been brought under micro-irrigation so far since 2003. Stands first in India, covering 9.7 lakh farmers due to the systematic use of available water source. The production of productivity of horticulture crops has been increased. Under this project, subsidy was increased from 70% to 100% for SC and SC farmers and 90% to other farmers under APMIP. Hybrid vegetable seed was supplied to farmers on subsidy covering 2.3 lakh hectares due to the usage of hybrid vegetable seed to the production and productivity of vegetable crops has increased substantially from 5.8 metric tons to 8 tons acres during the last 3 years. An area of 1.38 lakhs was covered under oil palm coveraging 73,000 farmers in AP stands first in the area of production of oil palm in India. Provided financial assistance to farmers for regeneration of old, senile mango, citrus, cashew and pomegranate in 1.88 lakh hectares to increase the productivity. An additional area of 3.50 lakh hectares have been brought under cultivation with horticulture crops like mango, sweet orange, cashew.